everybody. It's Nomsa here at Ngozi Talk Shows, Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. With me today, I'm with Dr. Biggett. How are you, Dr. Biggett?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are.
Yes, afternoon this side. So thank you so much, Dr. Biggett. So our topic today is grieving with God, how to find healing after loss. So in this video, we'll talk about the emotional and spiritual journey of grief, how to process pain, holding on to faith, and finding purpose after loss, whether you've lost a loved one or relationship or a dream. This is a space for healing, hope, and honest conversation. So, Dr. Biggett, what do you think about the topic?
It is a wonderful topic in that everybody experience something in life, and this is happen whether you are closely associated with God. In other words, you are very religious or you are not. It's one of those that there is a saying that does not choose. Eventually, as human, we all will pass from this life, and therefore, it is something that affect all of us. And the same thing with life challenge and adversities. Becoming religious does not spare you from having to grow old, having to go through pain, having to go from time to time, perhaps heartbreak, and any of those. And so what we want to be able to do is to be back to who we are, which is human, and experience it the way that we're meant to be, in whichever way that's comfortable for you, whether it is alongside your religion, while some people prefer not to do it that way, and not to be in a religious enclave, and that's everybody's choices.
Yeah, I agree with you. We all have a choice how we respond to every situation in life, whether to respond with pain or with grace. So yeah, I 100% um, depression or acceptance. So what are the most problems what's the most problem when you meet your clients? Do they go to denial or anger or depression? Most of your clients.
Thank you for the questions. And as a grief coach, a grief and trauma recovery coach, there are a couple things with your questions there, and I will answer your both questions that I capture from your question just now. And the first is in what way that people usually come to me, or which one I see. I see a variety of them. For people who come to me, who are seeking for my help, the majority of them are in states of being very sad, and also at the same time, just as many come to me after they start having physical symptoms secondary to the grief. Nowadays, we know through many studies and science that grief is not just an emotional process. Grief is also a physical process, causing all sort of inflammation and changes in your body, so much so that it can lead to heart attack. In the case of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, we know we have one person who has been grieving, and then her his parents start to have dementia, and he suddenly kind of almost like a wake up call for him and said, you know what, I know that grief can cause early dementia and some other health situations that he already experienced, but not the dementia. And he said, I think it's better for me to start working on this before I got into for early dementia and progress with other health conditions that he already started experiencing from the grief. And so a lot of people come to me from pronounced sadness, as well as being somebody who is specialized in complex, complicated, prolonged grief and trauma. A lot of time people come to me actually from being stuck in life. They tried this and they tried that, they tried therapy, they tried hypnosis, they tried the one with trauma, EMDR, and so forth, and they feel stuck. They feel life is still not whole, something's still wrong. Their relationship and their work, or both in most cases, is not where they want to be, and they know deep in their heart they've experienced this. And sometimes it's one major event, sometimes it's like childhood trauma. I'm one of my specialties, childhood trauma. It's accumulations of all these things that they have not completely recover from. And in that scenario, we work together. So that's people that come to me. Now, in terms of your first questions, is the different stages of grief, and are some people more in denial? Firstly, the 5 stages of grief is something that is created for people who are facing terminal illness, and only for people facing terminal illness is what it's meant to be applied. And then it's extended in its purpose for people who, for loved one of somebody who's facing terminal illness. So that's what the 5 stages for. But because there are so many there are so few guidelines and understanding in the world of grief, even now, a lot of people try to find something and apply it because they don't know how to navigate the landscape of grief. Other word, many therapists and counselors are not specifically trained in grief and are not grief specialists, so they try to find something, and then many people end up saying, well, you know what, we're going to apply this to everybody grieving, which is not appropriate. It is not meant to be that way. That was not how it was created for. And so for some people, they got into the state of denial, but many people don't. Many people, or even more, what I see people being told, oh, you are still in the state of denial. You're still in the state of denial. It's not being in the state of denial. They're simply in the states of they have not been able to to fully accept what happening, and actually they accept what happening, but they have not been able to make peace with what happening. And it's not necessarily a denial, it's just they have not been able to make peace with what happened. And many people are also told that you have to be in a state of acceptance to be able to fully recover and move forward with your life, and that is not true. You're muted.
I actually agree with you, Dr. Bickett, when you say sometimes people they go into acceptance and then they have not found peace. And also in this world where we live in, we want to grieve like everybody else. We want to do things like everybody else, which is end up destroying other people's feelings and stuff. When someone is taking a long time to grieve, they think there is something wrong with them. I remember there's one of my neighbor, he lost his dad, he was grieving. I kept giving him a hugs, and every time I talk to him, he'll be like crying. But then a year later, he was no longer crying. He was no longer talking about his dad like in that way, the way he was talking. He had found peace within him. And I was like, hang on a minute, you're different. What's different? And then I realized actually it's the grieving process that is now different. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, I just feel that joy within me that he allowed himself to be who he is and how he felt as well. Because I said to him, because every time I see him, he'll be like, "Oh, that's me again. I'm sure you'll find me annoying." I'll be like, "No." Um, I'll be like, "You need to take your time. How you grieve is how you heal yourself and stuff." But you can see that he was making some changes in his life. And the other day we were joking, we were like, no longer grieving. I saw him with his sister-in-law's like, no longer grieving no more. It was like, it's different. It feels different. It's like I feel it. Sometimes I miss him, but it's
I,
different.
I love you mentioned that because that brings up two things actually. And the first being, we hear a lot of time people say, give it time, like give the grief time. And there is this misunderstanding that time heals all. Well, if we really think about it, if time heals all grief and trauma, there will never be PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Time does not heal, time complicates. Now, having said that, at the same time, and sometimes I confuse people when I say this, I say, do not give grief time, but give yourself time. And that's actually a big difference between the two. You don't want to just say, sit on a couch, sit there and cry every day and say, oh my God, I'm just going to have to give the grief time here. I'm going to give grief time until it's eventually leave me and goes away. It doesn't happen. You need to do something, but you want to give yourself time. Everybody is different with grief. Asking earlier what is right, what is the denial or the anger, whatever that you feel is valid. Whether you feel anger at this moment and then in an hour you feel like bargaining with life, and then in the next hour you feel like something else, but your feelings always valid. Feelings. There's a difference between feelings and thoughts, but your feelings always valid. And so the same thing with grief, it's unique for everybody, and you want to be able to give yourself the time you need, the time you need to take the right actions to heal, the time you need to cry, the time you need to have a quiet time on your own, and the time you need with your journey. I work with employer organizations, and sometimes some people in the organization would come to me and say, so it's been 3 weeks, shouldn't we this already? It's been 2 weeks. It's been what have you. Everybody has different time frame, even for seemingly the same loss, because you never really know somebody's life. And so give yourself time, but do not give grief time, because in that that's a difference in there. And you are very true, and that's really good observations, Numsa, that you said you feel different. You keep saying, the neighbor, you feel different. And this is the thing with people. Sometimes I have people come and say, well, but I'm acting normal. I'm acting normal, and I'm smiling in front of people, and I'm laughing at people's jokes. And I say that's and so yeah, it should be just fine. I said that's what you think, that's not the reality, because people can feel you. You can put on a mask. If you actually crying and grieving inside, and you put on a mask, still a mask, and people can see that you put on a mask. That you are not quite right, but you're laughing, that you are not this way, but you're trying to smile, and people can feel you. And nowadays there are science, including from the HeartMath Institute, that show using instrumental. It's not just personal perception. They use EKG and things like that to show that what's you feeling inside, not what you're putting on your face, but what you're feeling inside, will other people can feel and change their heart rhythm. And this is like people across the room. They did an experiment. One person's on the one corner of the room, the other person's or dog diagonal across the room, and what you feel inside can change the heart rhythm across the room, and so people can feel what we feel inside, and that's just such a beautiful way to express that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Dr. Biggett. We can put a mask, but people like, because I used to feel like his cry was crying, and all of a suddenly that cry was no longer there anymore. Like even when I'm giving him hugs, you can see that he's just comes with joy and stuff. And I think also he knew that because every time when I meet him, he knew that I allow him to express it, how he's feeling. Because I said to him, you can't, like what you're saying, Dr. Biggett, that is important. That you can give yourself time, but you can't give grief time because it's something that it has to happen natural and it's you can't force it and you can't blame yourself and say, is there anything wrong with me? It's like myself, 1 minute I was grieving and then the next I'm like no longer grieving anymore. So it's like, ah, okay, that's how it feels. So my heart here just decided to let it go, accept my father, and just be. And since then, I don't really cry. I don't cry about anything about his death. I just is I've had enough time to grieve. So I think that is really, really, really important. So what advice can you give someone? Because we live in this world where people fear people. They're trying to fit in with people. They'll try to put a mask and pretend everything is okay, but while things are not okay. So I'm asking this question because through my journey of life, I've realized that people, they'll say, we love you, we are this, but they're not really, they don't mean that. But when you have problems, it's where they show you that we don't really want to listen to your problems. We like it when we talk about good stuff and things like that. But when you mention one problem, it makes that uncomfortable. We don't want to be there for you. So what advice can you give someone to allow themselves to be themselves and allow themselves to go through that process of grieving properly so it does not affect them in the near future?
Yeah. And the advice that I would invite people is to practice the yes and. And if you have a full keyboard, like a full keyboard in front of you, like your computer or something, you can look at the number 7, and above the number 7 is the symbol ampersand. That symbol ampersand can be translated or mean yes and. So in other words, what is a yes and? And this is something I actually learned from my life coach mentor. But yes and mean yes, you can be this way and you can also be this way. And to answer your question, sometimes we live in the real world. I work a lot with physicians and attorneys and so forth. And imagine and sometimes the attorneys come to me and say, well, this happens this time and what have you. And sometimes it's something very recent. I have a loss only a week ago, and next week I got to go to court. Now, I don't know the court system in a lot of different places, but here in the US, sometimes it is something that has a really long wait time. In other words, you got to wait months for the court date, and they definitely not something that they can just say, I just want to change it to next week or something like that. It will not be good for their client. It's not good for them, and it's probably not good for the court either. So they say, so what do? I can't be crying in court. Or with physicians, they said, okay, now this really made me feel touchy about this. And I also work with a lot of therapists who says, okay, now that this happened, it's make it really, really, I cannot even, I have a hard time not to cry in therapy sessions. They're the therapists. And, and what do I do? And this is when you want to do a yes and, where yes, there are times you need to put on the brave face. And that could be when you are in court with attorneys, sometimes executive. They said, I have a board meeting. I can't be crying in the board meeting. Yes, the people know about my loss, but crying in the board meeting is not a good idea. And I say, no, that's not a good idea. So for the next 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, you want to be able to have the tools and skills such that you're able to focus at tasks at hand. And then after that, you allow you to be you. And that's the yes and. That yes, if you got to go to work, many people who come to me work, and I said, okay, you got to go back to work. This is what we're going to do. This is the strategy when you are at work, such that you're able to work, that you're able to focus at work. Whatever, and it is that we're not talking about just always attorney. You could be a teacher. You could be working in a restaurant. So sometimes I have people who are wait staff, flight attendants, and so forth. They said, I got to be able, and so I will, coaching, you learn tools and skills, not just talking about things. So I will teach them tools and skills such that, yes, when you are at work, you want to be able to focus at work, you want to be able to perform well at work, but you're not at work 24/7. And in the rest of the time is when you want to allow you to be you. So it's a yes and. Yes, there are times you need to put on a face. There are times you need to step into the role of what you're doing. And then the rest of the time you want you to be you and allow help, allow support such that you will be able to heal the way you want to be able to heal much more readily. If you don't already know how to do that, even if you, if and then interestingly, people who are physicians, therapists sometimes kind of actually know this more than other, because they're like, I'm already a therapist and I realize that I need more help. I'm already a physician, so I need more help. Attorney seems to be very good in allowing help as well. They're like, okay, this is out of my hand here, and so I'm gonna allow help. And it's a yes and. Yes, sometimes you got to do that. And that's not your only life. You don't make it into everything else. The rest of your life, focus on being able to recover. And the recover is very different than get over. Some people say, you should get over it. Your child died, but it's been 6 months, so get over it. So I'm like, really? Wow. What even, that's from misunderstanding about grief. But my pet peeve, I think you know that by now, Nooms. My pet peeve is when people say, oh, get over it to somebody who are grieving. I'm like, it makes me want to vomit. Just kidding. So, but it's not get over. Being able to recover is, yes, the grief changed you. Yes, you experienced the loss, but yes, you are able to love the person even more or as much, and also honor yourself and everyone who are still here in this physical world by being able to recover and love without the pain and love with joy now. And that's recovering. That's not getting over. That's not forgetting. It's actually remembering even more.
Get over it. It's actually amazing how people do things, like the process of things, and how people will be like, get over it. But when it's them that are facing that, they're no longer saying get over it. And they're like, can you help me with the grief and stuff? It's not an easy thing to actually go through. And I'm glad that you're giving our audience to say your time is really, really important to give yourself time. And the grieving, please allow it to take it step by step, because each day comes is different. Because like myself, I struggled, but now if someone dies, I'm really happy to have them goodbye now. But before, I even surprised myself. I'm like, oh my goodness, what was that all about before? So it's really, really important for us to learn from this journey of pain. And then when we learn from this journey of pain, we are able to actually find that peace within us. So how do you, like, let's say, when do you need to say, okay, now I think it's time for me to seek a counseling when you're going through grief? Or do you just go, do you have to do it straight away? Or there's a time scale where you have to say, you know what, now is time that I need to take counseling?
And that's a great question. And just like with grief, it's different with everybody. Now, in general, my answer to that is if you're trying to do something and you don't know how and it's hurting you, then the sooner you allow help and receive help, the better. And sometimes people has a misunderstanding that grief, again from the saying give it time, that grief will go away on its own. But now knowing that grief does not go away on its own, then would you like to sit in it and simmer in it and let it go on and on and on and allow it to turn into complicated, complex, prolonged grief that affect other aspect of your life, as including your physical health, and wait that long before you receive help and allow help? Or would you prefer to take care of it before it makes the rest of your life unpleasant as well? And so it is some things that, and there, and everybody different. I have people who has been grieving and has not been able to work for years, and now they are on government support, and and some of them still don't want to allow the help. And everybody different, but in general, if it is something that some people see it as a form of weakness, but it is actually very smart. If your legs were broken, would you keep trying to walk on it and run? Take a lot of pain medication and say, okay, I'm gonna keep walking here. I'm gonna keep walking, and that leg's not going to, if it's fully break, it's not going to heal on its own smoothly. It's just not. My background is in medicines, and we know this. Even if it did manage to fuse back together, there it still will heal with a lot of calluses that will cause pain and cause impairment, neurologic disarrangement, and so on and so forth to the rest of your body. And so this is the same with grief. There, if your heart broken, keep trying to run and putting on a mask, in this case, that you are okay, instead of addressing it, it's not going to heal it. And even after you do not feel the initial intense emotional pain, it will cause, it will turn into a callus, and have calluses and turn you it perhaps into somebody that in a different personality that make it challenging. And in your line of work, you might have encountered this from time to time, Numsa, where people in a relationship, something happened in the past, they never allow themselves to recover fully from it, and now they're going from relationship to relationship, not being able to feel closeness, not being able to allow love him themselves because their heart full of callous. and so or it's different aspect of your life, it turned into a physical condition. So the question is, how long do you want to have your life be affected by it? Everybody's answer is different.
Yeah, I understand, Dr. Bickett, that we're all different, and people need to get they need to get help. it's not weakness. If we were all super, 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 there wouldn't be any coaches in this world, but there are coaches because everyone needs to take their life to the next level. So it's really, really important. Even grieving is not about death. It's like losing a job. It's still a grief. So you still need to, it's losing something important. So you still need to go and seek help. But I know that some people they say, oh, that it shows weakness. They say it's weakness, but they're still living in stagnation. So it's really, really important to go and seek help, guys. If you're watching the video, this live, please take Dr. Biget's details, keep them. And whenever you need help, put her on your speed dial. She's on social media. She's on the website, so you can get a hold of her. Because the grief, like you said, Dr. Bigot, that grief, there's some people who have good jobs, they end up being on benefits because it can destroy you if you don't deal with it properly. There are some people, when I speak to them, they're like, oh, I lost this person, my life was never the same, or they have miscarriage, or they lose children. They're like, my life has never been the same because they go into a place of blame, they blame themselves. But it actually has nothing to do with them. It's just life. Life is sometimes it's not fair.
Yeah,
But
it's like, we all come into this world and we are not given none of us really given the proper handbook on how to live this life. If you really think about it, welcome, like right as babies, and then yes, we go to school, but how many school actually teach about grief and how to navigate life? They teach you at least this. And I grew up in a different country in Indonesia and then come to the US. So at least in two different country, two major country in the world. And from what I speak with a lot of people, they come and teach you all this science and everything, which is awesome, which is really important to learn. But they don't teach you so much about life skill. There might be a psychology class, but it's not, here's how you navigate life, never mind life full of variety and changes and nuances. So we come into this world without a handbook on exactly how to navigate life, how to live life as and through different phases of life, as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, as an adult, as an older adult, as you grow older. What do you do with all this pain and aches when you become, when you are in your, say, 70s and your body start to change? And so it is only smart if you say, well, okay, if I want, I'm in the U.S. So I'm giving an example in the U.S. In the U.S., if you look at the map, this is the U.S. or Los Angeles is down here, New York is way up there. And if you say, okay, if I were born in life, it's as if I'm in Los Angeles and then I'm going to make it to New York and have no idea how to get there. Kind of the way it life, you got to navigate to drive to New York. Then you want to say, most people will say, well, it will be kind of smart for me to at least get a map. And in this day and age, get a GPS that can say, all right, turn left, turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left, And that's the same with life. You're born here, you need to make it up there. And you don't always have a handbook. And sometimes you can get a map, right? And this is when you read about their personal development and this and that and all different guides in life. But sometimes if you ever drive in fast moving traffic, so it's dependent on how you want to move through your life too. If you want to have if you say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna move slowly and I'm gonna stop frequently to look at the map. If anybody remember the day of the paper map. You got to look and you got to stop and you look again. Okay, I've done this, and what's these things. And in most of the time, life does not has freeway. Here, at least in the US, it's full of freeway. You can say, okay, I'm gonna take the 10 and then take this. That doesn't always happen. So if you say, I'm going to move through life slowly, and if I don't make it there, that's okay, because I'm going to move through life slowly with plenty of stops. Okay, if that's your choice. But if you say, I want to make sure I'm going to make it to New York, then maybe you want to have a GPS that talk you through the drive, so you don't have to keep stopping, accidentally get into an accident while trying to look at a map while you are navigating the road. And so it's we do that with physical things. We do that in different ways, but many times we don't realize that's also our actual life. It's like you're trying to drive from wherever, you're trying to drive from in Europe, from Paris to Vienna or something like that. If you never done that, you want to get a map, and that's the same thing with life. And there are times when the drive get tougher, and that's when you perhaps want to allow even extra support.
Yes, I love the part where you say we live in this world where we don't have a map to actually see what our tomorrow is going to look like. I always feel sorry for people who don't know God, because with God, everything is possible. He can show you how your tomorrow will look like. He can guide you through life. So I'll always say living without God is so, so depressing. And I always just feel for people. And that's why I always say to people, get help if you have any problem. Like myself, I am where I am because I'm not afraid when things are not working well. I'm not afraid to tell myself that I need help, get help, to really approach help and get it, and take my life to the next level. But some people, they get afraid because they feel they are weak. They will be seen as weak, and
Or they
everybody.
exactly, and they think that it is a strength to or they said, oh, okay, I'm working with the church and I'm not going to get any other help. But if what you are doing is not working, then you can allow yourself more help. This is in the Bible. The Proverbs says, I believe Proverbs 15 says, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. Not just one. With many advisors, they succeed. So it is okay. God gives us permissions and encouragements to be able to receive help. With many advisors, they succeed. And so if you look, we look at that, even the church, even the leader receive help from each other.
Yep, yeah. And I was listening to my pastor yesterday. He's building a building. So he was explaining that as a pastor, you guys expect me to be perfect. You expect me to live this life of perfection. Anything I do, or the little mistake, when I do a little mistake, you crucify me, making sure you take the whole piece of me to the ground. So he says, I'm building this place so that when I feel defeated, when I feel I need to be with God, this is where I go to when I'm feeling the whole world is against me. And I'm building it for other pastors as well, when they feel the whole world is against them, to just come here and feel this place and be in a beautiful place where they're not going to be judged, but they will just meditate and be with God. So it made me realize that we all equal no matter how much their pastors and staff or someone, even mentors like Dr. Biggett, you said sometimes you have to you coach mentors as well while grieving. Like I was going to psychologist. This is where I realize I actually, although someone is a psychologist, that does not mean they are qualified to help you with grief, because it's something that is specialized. So you need to go to someone who is truly, truly specialized with grief. So I think it's really, really important. I love that, what you said. And you also mentioned that earlier, many schools don't teach grief. And I think that is really, really important as well. Because when someone at school is grieving, it sometimes they can judge that person and say it's naughty, they're naughty children, and simply end up diagnosing them with the wrong things. So it's really, really important to take somebody to a qualified therapist. Yeah.
Exactly. It's somebody that you want to have the right person. You don't go to a dermatologist for a broken leg.
No. Yeah.
And same thing. There are plenty of therapists. There are life coaches. There are also mindset coaches, business coaches. Imagine it's going to a business coach for grief or therapists who are not particularly trained in grief, and they might be particularly good in different things, a certain personality disorder. But it's just like sometimes people come to me and say, hey, can you help me with this? And I say, well, thank you, I'm honored, but no, I can't help you with this. I can try to help you find help, but it's not, for instance, I don't work directly with children. And they said, I need help. I said, I can help you navigate this. And in the meantime, we try to find somebody to help your children. I don't directly work with children. And this is the same thing. Everybody has their own specific specialty, and you want to have the right person for the right time. And thank you earlier for mentioning to have my informations on a speed dial. Sometimes it can be scary, and also learn about the persons through this. And I actually have I believe it's on June 1st. I have a public online workshop coming up. And so if it is something that your loved one or you are experiencing something in the realm of grief, and you are very right on, Numsa, earlier to say that sometimes it is a loss of a loved one, but sometimes it's something else. It could be, I have many people come to me from unmet hope. It could be like you want to be able to have your own children, and you've done everything under the sun to be able to do that, and you are not able to do that. You want to be able to, I have sometimes people say, I really wish, I used to wish, and yes, I go dating and I do this and I do everything else, and I want to be married by the age of 40. And for some reasons I'm not. I'm 41, and it feels like, what's the point? And it could be any form of grief, because those are losses as well. Those are loss of your hope and wishes, and it can be sometimes more painful because, or just as painful in a different form, because those usually don't have a lot of support. People say, well, okay, you don't have your own kids, go adopt somebody, but that's not the point for you. Right? You're like, yeah, I got that, but it's different. And so, okay, well, you have not been married, but at least you are successful in A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. And you're like, yeah, I am grateful, but that's a different point. And so, whatever that the cause of grief, just know it is possible to have help.
Yeah, I like that, Dr. Biggett, when you say I met help. It's really, really, really important for people to Forget about everybody else being judged by people and just do the right thing. Look after yourself properly. When you feel like you have an unmet hope, and just go and seek that advice to the right coach, and just live your life to the fullest, because sometimes we might have unmet hope because of the blockage inside that we actually have. We want what we want, but inside we still believe that we are not good enough. So that can cause the blockage. So it's really, really good to understand the power of acceptance when you fully, truly accept yourself and surrender to God. For me, it's all about knowing who I am and letting myself know that, okay, people might live a different life, or my neighbors or my friends, but it does not mean that I have to, if I'm going through pain, I have to try to fit in. I have to look after myself by going seeking help. And it doesn't matter what people think and stuff. And sometimes people will be like, oh, do you have to have a coach? Do you have to do this? And sometimes people can't afford matchmaking, but they still want to find love. And you tell them you can go on dating apps, but it's not easy. Or you can go out, meet people, actually, like going out, going to places, events, and meeting people. They don't want to go out and meeting people. They don't want to go on dating app, but they want to get married. I'm like, if you want to get married, then if you want to go to dating app, you're gonna have to be like Nomsa and say hello to people and create a conversation in every day-to-day life, because that's how our parents met, natural. But we don't do that. Nowadays, if you go in I don't know, in the US, Dr. Biggett, here in the UK, when you go, everyone has got a smartphone. They're like, they're not talking. They are on the maybe train. You're sitting next to somebody. They can't even say hello to you. Yes, they
Yes,
can't even.
they're walking and they're looking at at the phone, and I hear you. And there are people who are that way, and this is not a judgment, just sometimes it's hard to see when we are the one in the picture, right? But just
Yeah.
think about this, like, okay, and in the realm of grief, I have people come and say this: I want to get better, I want to feel better, but they don't want to go and do anything.
Nope.
They don't go, they don't want to go to therapy. They don't want to work with me or any other coach. It doesn't have to be with me, but they're like, no, I don't feel good going to therapy. Okay, then work with a coach. No, I don't want to get a coach. Okay, what, do something. No, and and I just want to be able to sit at home and for this to go away. Imagine you got a pneumonia and you say, I'm miserable, I'm coughing, my chest hurt, I got pneumonia, the silent pneumonia. And you don't want to go to the doctor. Or sometimes there are also people who come and they say, okay, well, yeah, I went to the therapist. The therapist asked me to do A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. I'm like, well, good for the therapist. At least these therapists actually know about grief and ask you to do A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. But I didn't want to do it. Okay, and then they enrolled to work with me, and I say, you need to do A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I didn't want to do this. Okay, you go to the doctor, and the doctor said, please take this antibiotic. And you say, no. And then you go to the integrative medicine person, and then you say, and the person said, okay, please do this exercise and take this herb because it's integrative. And you say, no. and, and then you say, well, I'm still miserable. Or you said, well, I'm still not meeting anybody, I'm still not married, but you don't want to do matchmaking. You don't want to go to the dating app site or what have you, and you don't even want to talk to people.
Yeah, I think you have to have the mindset of being driven and really wanting to put your well-being first, because it is really, really important to look after yourself and to really make sure that your well-being comes first. Because when you put your well-being first, it means when I'm able to go and pray, I'm going to stay focused and listen to God, listen to his response. So if I'm not looking after myself, I'm not in the right place, I'm not going to get to go to where I need to be. So it's really, really important to actually um, it's when I realized when I was going through the coaches and stuff at the psychologist about the grief, they couldn't help me. But then when I started using the Bible, really understanding how to find peace within myself, that's when I found the breakthrough. But when I started now broadcasting with you, so now I started realizing that actually the reason why I could not get it is because these people, they are not really specialized in grief. That's why I could not get through to them. They could not get through to me because they were not specialized in grief. So, and then but when we started working together, now I begin to understand what grief is, because sometimes we can misunderstood things, even losing like a job or losing something that is important to me, that people might look at it and say, oh, that thing is small, it might affect me. So I didn't realize, actually, to me I didn't realize it was grief until you brought that into my attention. So if I come, like if I go through something like that, or if I lose something, or even unmet hope, I always make sure that I'm aware that I'm grieving and work on myself. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it could be having to move from where you are living. And
yeah,
even if it is something to people don't realize this, people say, I have perfect life, never have experienced anything. But even people who move from where you move different, for instance, you come from a different continent,
yeah,
and so did I. And that is a grieving process. Everything is different. And
yeah,
by definition, grief is the unsettled feeling caused by a change, a loss, or unmet hope. Well, in that case, if you come, you lost the familiarity. Everything is different. Driving on a different side of the road. So that's alone it's enough to create a lot of turmoil when you start doing that. And everybody and the culture different, the food different, and everything. You lost familiarity, and there's a lot of change. Even if you just moving from one neighborhood to another, and even if you're moving to a house that you prefer, it's still a different house. Things are in different location. You have to go to the store and to work and wherever using different routes. People who are immediately around you, even if you say, "Del, that's my dream home. I always want a house this way and that way, and now I'm finally able to do that." But the neighbors that you've known different. If you were in, let's say, the middle class area and now you move to an upper middle class area, then the vibe, the way people do things and everything might be different. And these are all, you lost the familiarity, and then you also experience changes at the same time. And this all can be a cause of grief. And we know that grief is cumulative and cumulatively impairing. In other words, little things that happen that cause grief to you, if you're not aware of it, they and you try to power through like many of us. And the scripture says this. Sometimes we say oh, we want to be strong. We got to be strong, to be strong. But there is somewhere in the scripture, I believe it's the scripture of John, that say Jesus wept. He didn't say Jesus put on a mask to be laughing and crying when he's actually sad. No, it says Jesus wept. And so it means for us human, it's also okay and it is good. It is following his example to be true to ourselves if we are feel
Yeah,
grief.
yeah, he did. That's John 11:35. He wept, and is considered to be the like it shows that if God can actually do what react the way he did, what about us? We are allowed to respond with sadness, with cry, but it is after that how we go on from there. Like you said, give yourself time, but don't grieve. Don't give grief time. These are two things. You and the grief are two different things. But people, I think they give time and then they give the grief time and then they're not grieving properly. Then they uh, start having unmet hope, because that can affect you when you walk through your journey of life. So it's really, really important to put your well-being first and live that life that you desire and to the fullest with God, because even God wants you to have helpers and he's happy to connect you with people. We all have these people that God has put them in our place. So it's really, really important. For me, I feel so blessed because I get to listen to different coaches every day here at Ngozi Talk Shows. Now you're a grief coach. I get to listen and I get to take some notes. When I'm faced with that problem, I know I can pick up the phone and call Dr. Biget, or I can go back to the videos and watch the grieving videos. That's why when you come on, I always take the opportunity to make sure that you talk about grief. So yeah, that is really, really important. It's 8 minutes past 2. Do you have any words of encouragement, Dr. Biget, that you would like to leave with our audience?
My word of encouragement is sometimes when we're grieving, it feels like there is no way to get out of that, out of the situations. But just know that there is help if you take the action. And if you try one thing and it doesn't work, if you give it a try and it doesn't work, keep trying. Try something else. If you try to go this path and you meet a dead end, turn around and take a different path. But as long as you continue on, there is help, and therefore there is hope. And I will post on the sites, NUMSA, the event, my event that's coming up in case somebody can benefit from it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Biget. Please do post them in the two groups. We have two groups. Please do post them and tag me as well on my personal page. And that's really, really important. I find my personal page is busier than other pages. So I think if you tag me there, people can find it. That would be really, really great. And guys, for those who are watching, guys, I like this thing where I always tell people how you respond in every situation is how your tomorrow is going to look like. If you respond by asking help, seeking help, your tomorrow will be smooth and you'll have a happy life. So it's really, really important. So guys, if you're following us on YouTube, please do subscribe to our channel. Uh, And we have two groups on Facebook, Unique Billionaire Mindset and Ngozi Talk Shows. Please do join those two groups and be part of the family. Share the videos, guys, with your families. It's really, really important. And don't forget to follow Dr. Biget. You have to follow her so that when grief comes, you're like, Dr. Bigot, and you ping her. If she doesn't reply, you can message her through me as well, and then I will make sure that she gets back to you. God bless everyone. Live with grace, and we'll see you.